WTA members, thanks for joining us. Today, President Marshall and I are pausing with past President Rob Marshall. Hi, Rob.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So, a few questions for you.
Sure.
What makes you most proud to be an athletic trainer in the state of Nebraska?
Lots of stuff. A couple things that come to mind. One is just the reputation that Nebraska has for involvement. If you look across really the country, a lot of the states struggle with getting people involved, getting initiatives through. Nebraska really hasn't. We've got a great bullpen of young leaders, seasoned leaders, even like yourselves. But the thing I'm really proud of is a lot of those leaders, as they go through their terms, generally don't come back or give back. They don't stick around. And it seems in Nebraska, maybe to a detriment, you can't get rid of us. We kind of never go away. The other thing I would say is, having spent my entire career in the secondary schools, the thing I'm most proud of from a state association standpoint is our relationship with the NSATA. A lot of people probably don't remember that it wasn't that long ago. If you went to state track as an athletic trainer, you couldn't work with your kids, couldn't get on the track. You had no access to those kids. And it took a lot of work from a lot of people, the Scott Martins of the world and Dave Schultz with wrestling and making those venues and those championships available. And it blossomed into a really amazing relationship. I can remember the time when you'd have arguments and fights between wrestling officials and athletic trainers as to why they were there. Now if you watch one of those tournaments, we spend more of our time with them, and a lot of them become really good friends. But it wasn't always that way, and I think some of the younger people think this is the way it's always been, and it really hasn't been. And the leadership at the NSA and those relationships that we've forged over the years have brought a lot of benefit to not just athletic trainers, but truly the student athletes, which is really why we're here.
And we have the state of Nebraska has you to thank for that. You're a trailblazer in all that process as well.
Well, and there's a lot of people. Sometimes people forget about the Dave Schultz and Scott Martins and even the John Cartas and Matt McHoustons that have worked those events for years. A lot of debt of gratitude go to a lot of people.
Kurt Fairhorse.
Yes.
Yeah, Kurt lately.
There's a lot of you that have really done a lot for our whole association.
Yeah. Well, this question kind of leads into what you just had talked about. Since you've been president, what change or changes within the association or just in athlete training in Nebraska in general stand out to you in the last?
There's obviously the NSA one is a large one just because it affects so many athletic trainers, and truthfully, at the end of the day, it affects so many athletes in Nebraska. The licensure, for everybody that wants to practice at the top of their scope. You go back and think of the people like Rusty McCune or Steve Ronspees, Jim Johnston, Denise Vandell. You just talk about legends, people that have given so much to this profession and to this state specifically. You can't say enough about them, and I think sometimes we kind of forget. We just assume this is the way it's always been, and this is the way it is. But you're talking about people that gave up a lot of their time and a lot of their talents to make Nebraska what it is. But yeah, just an impressive group.
You two have given a lot of your time and your energy and efforts into the changes that have been happening in Nebraska, and you're becoming one of those legends.
I don't know that I would go there, but
what advice would you give to somebody that's looking to get into leadership?
It's a great question, and really pretty simple. Everybody that I've heard people all the time, I don't have time for it, or I don't like to speak, or whatever the reason is that they don't want to get into it. I would simply say this: you will get 10 times out of it the amount of time you put into it. The relationships that you get to build, the people that you get to be around, the inner workings of how athletic training works, whether it's licensure or salary surveys or just all of those different issues that we face, quality of life issues. When you get into leadership, you get open to a whole entire different group of people. You get into all of the different situations that athletic trainers face, and then how do we conquer those, right? The nice part is we conquer them together. I think sometimes people think, well, the leadership are those people, but those people are in leadership. if you look around at anywhere, look at the state level, look at the district level, look at the national level, it's all volunteers. It's all it is. There's no professional leader anywhere. It's people that were willing to give of their time and talents to at least make the contribution and hopefully make it better. And I will honestly say, everything I learned about being a grown up, I learned by volunteering. It really was. How do you go in and negotiate? How do you deal with those difficult situations, those difficult conversations? How do you take a staff and lead them? I learned all that through volunteerism. I really did. And then the connections that you can make that come out of that. If you boil Rob down to a simple thing, I grew up in a really tiny town, played 8-man football, came to Columbus. It's not a very big town. How can somebody at that small little high school make a difference? Well, it's pretty easy. You volunteer, you raise your hand, and you will be rewarded 10 times over. It has been an amazing ride for me, which is kind of why I stuck with it for so long. The blessings that come from leadership are tough to qualify, but you will have them, and it actually makes your practice better. It makes you just better as an athletic trainer to have that chance to work with some of the most incredible, not just athletic trainers, but some of the most incredible people and visionary minds. And I've been blessed. I really have. Wouldn't have changed it for the world.
Yeah. So you had on all levels, been at the state, district, and national level. You have a chance to meet all sorts of athletic trainers of all ages. What would you give a young athletic trainer within their first 0 to 5 years? What advice would you give them in getting into athletic training and what to expect in those years?
What to expect? Yeah, there's the $1 million question. The one thing I would tell you is I came to Columbus as the only athletic trainer and felt alone on an island, and trying to wade through the return to play decisions and all those things. If you're a young athletic trainer that's not on much of a staff, if you have some people around you, is what's going to make it a little bit easier, and it will bring you along much quicker. So if you're an athletic trainer that's at a high school all by yourself, I'd suggest a couple of things. You hear the mentor-mentee, and I get that. Maybe sometimes it's overused, but you need to connect with somebody. You need to connect with somebody quick. And I would say this, if you're watching this and you're a young athletic trainer at a high school all by yourself, I don't know anybody to call, 910-TAPE. That's my phone number. Call me. I don't want anybody to have to go through that. We get to burnout. And why is that? Well, a lot of times there's ways to handle situations that as a young athletic trainer, none of us know. And if you're on your own and you're feeling that way, it does. It makes it tough. How do you handle your AD? How do you handle that football coach or that parent? You need to get people around you. And if you don't have them, the question before, having that chance to volunteer for leadership and getting in and making that circle of your peers bigger will dramatically help. Having somebody to call with that after that JV game and you got yelled at by your parents, having somebody to call and at least vent and get that off your chest will make a big difference in your quality of life and how work goes. So, yeah, just getting a support staff around you will make a big difference for those young people. And if you don't, make some phone calls. Because here's the funny part. Every one of us went through it. Every one of us. So we know exactly what those people are going through. And I don't know of anybody that if you called them in the state of Nebraska and said, I'm a young athletic trainer and I'm struggling, they'll take that phone call. They'll walk you through it. You might end up with a new best friend. I had the Rusty McCune and Mac McHouston and Dave Schultz. I had those people. I don't know if I had them. I called them all the time. They answered the phone, I guess. But a chance to talk that through. So, yeah, reach out.
Great advice.
Very true advice. Well, thank you for taking a moment to pause with us and share some of your knowledge.
Thanks for doing everything you've done for the state of Nebraska, and happy President's Day, but in the athletic training world of NSATA, happy athletic
President's Month.
There we go.
Celebrate the
Wow.
whole month.
You get a whole month.
Yeah.
I'm assuming there's snacks involved, so that'll be good.
Well, thank you, and see you later, NSATA.
So close.